The story begins with a man seeking the pinnacle of martial arts, but he realized that one lifetime would not be enough to achieve this goal. So to change this, he clung to the legend of a golden fruit protected by a dragon. This mystical fruit was said to contain the power of immortality. Upon finding the place, the fighter was surprised because the legend was true, and on the tree was the legendary fruit of immortality, shining brightly. After a difficult battle, the man finally manages to defeat the divine dragon. Even badly injured, he drags himself to the tree to collect his reward. With the item in hand, he believes he can continue his journey in the martial arts. Without a second thought, the warrior takes a big bite of the golden fruit. This man was Gilfas Lragon, known as the strongest of them all. Fast forward several decades, the scene changes to a beautiful castle. There, we see that Gilfas has grown old and is now in his bed surrounded by his family. His eldest son, Gilliam, seems unable to accept his father's departure, but Patriarch asks so his heir doesn't look sad, because his time has come. The elder's grandson says the mansion will be lonely without his mother and father around. Gilfas then reflects that in the end, the legends were not at all reliable, but he feels lucky to have been blessed with a wife and children. The man says he has lived more than enough, and seems to be at peace with his fate. Looking at everyone, he confidently states that he has no regrets. However, he thinks this is ridiculous, because he does have regrets. He regrets deeply, and holds his heir's hand tightly. Tears stream down his face, because he wishes he had more time. Desperate, the elder stretches out his arm because he has not yet achieved his goal. His greatest wish was to have reached the pinnacle of martial arts. Thus, Gilfas Lragon ended his life, or at least that's what it seemed. He wakes up and wonders if he was asleep, noticing that his body is light. Looking at himself, the man wonders about his hands. Baby. Amazement overtakes him when he realizes that those hands are really his. Then the penny drops and he understands that he's somehow become a baby. He tries to calm himself and finds it bizarre that someone like him has been caught in this situation. This is certainly not normal, and he wonders who could have done this. Concentrating, he tries to find an answer to this mystery. At that moment, a memory flashes through his mind about the dragon and the tree, and he remembers the golden fruit he ate many decades ago. He understands everything. The effect wasn't immortality, but reincarnation. With a smile on his face, he realizes how lucky he was with this second chance. Looking around, he notices that the room is full of other sleeping babies. While in the annex, he knows he's been reborn into the Lragon family again. Soon after, some maids enter the room carrying baby bottles. He realizes that the maids are there to feed the babies after all, but one of them gives a strange order, and suddenly a goblin appears, screaming. The former warrior is confused. Seeing two women holding the creature tightly, they eliminate the monster and collect its vital fluid in one of the baby bottles. The red liquid splashes everywhere, staining the crib and the baby's face. Our protagonist is shocked, not understanding what just happened. One of the servants says that diluting the liquid should be safe and tells him to feed the children. At that moment, a servant picks up the boy and brings the bottle to his mouth. He realizes that it isn't milk and is shocked by the immense power in the liquid. While another child is being fed, he thinks that giving it to babies is very dangerous. Instinctively, his baby's body begins to drink the red liquid, unable to resist. He curses himself for forgetting he's a baby and identifies the liquid as dragon's blood. Then he understands that the dilution was for this purpose while the other children drink. Gilfas thinks this is very bad and that he needs to spit it all out immediately. But he's already swallowed some and thinks a small amount won't kill him. Seeing the other babies spitting, he considers doing the same but hesitates for a moment. Changing his mind, the boy realizes this is actually a great opportunity. He believes that by absorbing this power, he can overcome his past life. Decided, the baby begins to drink the entire contents of the bottle with gusto. Not knowing why, he decides to take advantage of the situation and absorb the energy. With his face smeared with blood, he thinks they shouldn't underestimate him. With a determined smile, he states that they shouldn't underestimate Gilfas Lragon. His eyes glow with intense power as he concentrates completely. The maid is shocked to see such an unusual reaction from a baby, so he decides to absorb all the power to finally achieve his goal. At that moment, the blood's energy manifests in the form of a dragon. Inside his mind, a fierce battle between two dragons takes place. He is surprised that the power is being absorbed so easily. But the boy realizes that this is perfect for his plans to become stronger. Somehow he managed it, and is now lying in his crib recovering. Looking around, he realizes that the other babies also managed to survive. However, as expected of a baby's body, he begins to feel very sleepy. 7 years later, someone counts to 999 during training. We see that it is our protagonist training hard while balancing a rock. With a powerful kick, he throws the rock far away without difficulty. Then he jumps and destroys the rock in mid-air with just one punch. Satisfied, he thanks the dragon's blood for his spectacular physique. It is explained that all living beings possess a source power, and the dragon's blood that Zeke and the others drank had immense power. Because as a result, the babies who consumed it gained much stronger bodies. Zeke was the only one to absorb all of the dragon's power, which caused changes that surprised him. But despite all this energy, the boy is still only at the 1-star level. He becomes frustrated because he believes he should have reached at least 4 stars by now. It is explained that stars are compressed power. The more you have, the stronger you become. In his past life, the boy was known as Gilfus, the strongest of all. And as Gilfus, he was the only being to reach the 10-star level. 7 years have passed since he was reborn as the bastard son of the family leader. His mother has passed away, and the young warrior never got to see his father's face. He also discovers that he was reincarnated 1,000 years in the future, which is a great surprise. The boy realizes that the world has become a place of survival of the fittest, and the greatest example of this was the ritual that made the babies drink dragon blood. Only children who survive this test can become warriors. Lragon. But the boy realizes that his situation is very different from what it was supposed to be. When he asks why he's isolated, the maid says she can't answer. Zeke complains that anyone who passes the test should receive combat training. He says he doesn't care so much because he can train his physical conditioning alone. But the boy would like information about the other children or the main family. He insists that these are family matters, but the maid refuses to speak again. Annoyed, the young man asks if that's the only thing she can say. The girl replies that she only has orders to take care of his daily needs. The young man realizes that the maid is a 3-star practitioner and would be enough to train him. Seeing that the woman doesn't follow him, he wonders if she's finally going to ignore him. With that, the boy enters the forest to continue his training alone. There, he pulls a poisonous plant from the ground with great force for a test. Then the young warrior takes a bite of the leaf without hesitation. He grimaces and complains about the taste, but this is part of his endurance training. While practicing patience, he becomes irritated by a gaze that constantly follows him. The boy would really like this person to stop watching him all the time. Standing in a clearing, he didn't expect them to appear over something so small. Irritated, he asks whoever is there to come out and speak to him directly. Hidden in the bushes, he senses a strange presence and becomes alert. Suddenly, a huge fury boar appears in front of the boy. He notices a black mist surrounding the animal, something that didn't exist 1,000 years ago. Surrounded by a dark aura, the beast rushes to attack young Zeke. The animal advances, ready to pierce the boy with its tusks. But with a confident smile, the boy prepares to face the monster. Without any difficulty, he dodges the wild boar's swift attack. With a single blow of his hand, the boy hits the animal with a golden energy. He is surprised that a light touch on a being of the same level generated so much power. Carrying the beast on his back, he concludes that he is tired of being ignored. Hidden in the forest, a mysterious figure thinks about taking a journey, maybe to the sea. The hooded man is impressed that Zeke manifested a star and defeated a boar with a single hit. He also knows the boy is not normal for sensing his presence. This person is aware of the boy's past, knowing his mother is gone, and his father has no interest in him. The watcher muses that despite being illegitimate, Zeke is still part of the head's bloodline and cannot escape the family. Finding the situation interesting for the future, the man disappears, vanishing from sight. Meanwhile, the scene changes to the isolated wooden house where the young warrior lives. Back inside, Zeke senses the presence of skilled fighters nearby and wonders what they want. He carefully listens by the door as the men outside comment on the peacefulness of the area. Deciding they aren't hostile, he opens the door and asks what business they have there. 2 men in uniform, one old and one young, stand before him. Surprised by his directness, the boy immediately recognizes the Lragon family emblem on their uniforms and questions their arrival. The elder officer announces they have come to escort Master Zeke for an examination. Zeke is completely stunned when he hears he has to take an examination. He shouts in pure shock and disbelief at the sudden news. The youth yells in frustration, realizing he hasn't been taught anything at all. Sometime later, wearing a new uniform, Zeke reflects that he never expected to return to the main estate. After 7 years of isolation, he walks toward the massive Lragon castle with other children. He was brought back by messengers from the main house but was told he would not be living there. It's revealed that his destination is a special place called the Dragon's Nest. Zeke learns all family children train until age 7 for an exam, finding it ironic since he got no education. He realizes the exam is mandatory, which is why he was brought all the way from the frontier. The youth squats down in frustration, annoyed that this happened just when he planned on leaving. It would have been a simple escape, but as he sulks, another boy approaches him from behind. A blue-haired youth from Ordscale Village introduces himself as Rangus and asks if he is okay. Zeke is caught off guard and asks who he is, so the boy repeats his name, explaining he seemed troubled. The young warrior silently observes the newcomer, trying to read his intentions. He senses that this timid-looking kid is surprisingly perceptive and has a unique energy. Snapping out of his thoughts, Zeke stands up and apologizes for his strange behavior. He confirms the other boy's name is Rangus before introducing himself as Zeke. Zeke explains he was just confused about the exam, making Rangus nervous since the test content rarely changes. When he asks for details, Rangus panics, shocked that someone would arrive with zero information. The blue-haired boy worries about how reckless this is, but a loud voice suddenly interrupts them. Both of them turn around, and Rangus looks visibly startled by the person calling his name. A smug boy named Retin, also from his village, tells Rangus to go home before he gets hurt. Rangus nervously stammers that he is there for the Dragon's Nest exam, but Retin just scoffs. The bully and his friends laugh, saying there is no way he could get in, mentioning his father is a pseudo-dragon. Retin continues his taunts while Zeke quietly observes Rangus clenching his fist in anger. The scene explains that the Lragon family has a strict hierarchy ruled by an absolute monarch. At the bottom of this ranking system are the novice whelp dragons. Just above them in the strict social order are the regular soldier child dragons. Moving up the hierarchy are the captain-level adult dragons, showing their power. At the top of the chain are the executive-level elder dragons, the highest authority. However, at the very bottom of this system are the pseudo-dragons. This title is given to those who fail to graduate, marking them as immature failures. But the blue-haired boy clenches his fists, determined to prove he is not fake. Zeke then asks the bully why he is so sure that Rangus will fail without even trying. With a confident stance, the young warrior steps forward to face the group directly. Retin asks who he is, but Zeke just wants to know why it is impossible for Rangus. The bully loudly declares that it's because the blue-haired boy is obviously weak. Rangus is visibly hurt by the insult, his eyes wide with shock. Zeke calmly replies that his new companion is probably much stronger than their group. Furious, Retin asks if he is saying that they are weaker than a weakling. The bully takes an aggressive step forward, ready to escalate the conflict. At that moment, a loud voice suddenly shouts for everyone's attention. An examiner announces that the Dragon's Nest entrance examination will now begin. As Retin and his friends leave, he glares back, vowing to remember Zeke's face. The young warrior finds the bully's anger amusing, but Rangus reminds him they are the same age. Zeke still doesn't understand why anyone would get so mad over his simple observation. He asks his companion if people really get upset over things like that. Then he adds that since the exam is mandatory, arguing about it is a waste of time. Rangus is stunned that Zeke knows nothing, while the warrior is shocked to learn he can withdraw from the exam. The blue-haired boy suggests he should withdraw too, so he does not get hurt. But Zeke confidently states that someone of his skill level could not withdraw even if he tried. He then urges his new companion to hurry, so they do not miss the start of the test. The examiner explains the test is simple. They must scratch a rock to pass. Unauthorized weapons are not allowed, but bare hands are fine. The man holds up 3 fingers, clarifying that each applicant only gets 3 attempts to succeed. Zeke thinks the test is surprisingly easy, making Rangus and the other children look at him in disbelief. He had expected a terrifying test after the dragon blood trial, but this just seems anticlimactic. He looks down at his number 1 tag, ready for whatever comes next. The examiner yells for the test to begin, and the first applicant steps forward nervously. With a loud shout, the boy swings his provided sword at the rock with all his might. However, the blade shatters upon impact, and a powerful shockwave hits him directly. The loud noise makes the other students, including Rangus, cover their ears in pain. The first applicant is thrown to the ground defeated, as the examiner marks his first failed attempt. The official coldly states that the attempt is considered an abandonment and orders someone to clean it up. He then calls for the next applicant to step forward without any delay. Zeke looks at Rangus, who is still shaken, and realizes this test is not what it seems. He squints at the rock, wondering what kind of strange material it is made of. Rangus explains it's a regeneration stone that reflects brute force attacks with hundreds of times the power. The young warrior finds this ridiculous, but Rangus adds that circulating source power through the body will allow one to scratch it. Zeke concludes that handling source power is more important than the quality of one's martial arts. He carefully considers this new information, understanding the nature of the test. Looking at the other applicants, he believes quite a few will pass, including the bullies from earlier. The test continues, and applicant number 51 fails with a loud cry of despair. Soon after, number 202 also fails, getting thrown back by the stone's power. The stream of failures seems endless, with hundreds of applicants unable to pass the test. Finally, the examiner calls for number 315, and Rangus realizes it's his turn, looking very nervous. Zeke tells his worried companion not to worry, and confidently steps forward to take his place. Rangus watches with a face full of anxiety, unable to shake his concern for his new friend. The young warrior walks calmly into the arena as the examiner prepares to record his attempt. A golden aura appears behind him as he thinks about the provided weapon collection. The examiner asks if he plans on using a weapon, but Zeke replies that his fist is enough. The other students are shocked, whispering that he cannot make a scratch bare-handed. Rangus panics, thinking his friend's entire arm will be blown off by the impact. He grabs his clothes in regret, wishing he had tried harder to stop him from being so reckless. Unimpressed, the examiner simply tells the boy to begin his attempt. Zeke touches the rock, recognizing it as a mineral he has never seen before. He clenches his fist, surrounded by a fiery aura, deciding it doesn't matter what the stone is. Seeing the immense power gathering, Rangus screams, feeling he has to stop him after all. With a determined grin and glowing eyes, Zeke unleashes his power, ignoring his friend's desperate shout. He unleashes his full power, preparing to use the first form of his dragon destruction combat arts. With a powerful burst strike, his fist connects with the rock, shattering it instantly. A massive explosion of golden energy erupts from the point of contact, sending dust and debris flying. Rangus is completely blown away, his eyes wide with disbelief at the incredible display of power. The main examiner watches the scene unfold, his expression remaining stoic and unreadable. With a confident smile, the young warrior seems pleased with his overwhelming performance. He admits the technique was a bit advanced for him, looking at his injured hand with a grin. All the other applicants in the stands are completely speechless, staring in stunned silence. Even the bully from before is shocked, muttering that the boy actually shattered the stone. A blonde-haired girl in the crowd smiles, finding the young warrior's power very interesting. Rangus is still in a state of shock, his mind struggling to process what he just witnessed. Meanwhile, Zeke stands proudly in the arena, satisfied with his successful attempt. The examiner is stunned, realizing only a 4-star level fighter should be able to destroy the stone. He wonders if the boy is truly of the head's bloodline and recalls seeing that technique somewhere before. The young warrior approaches the official with his injured hand and asks about his test results. After a moment of thought, the examiner loudly announces that number 315 has passed. Another examiner then approaches him and hands him a small bottle of healing potion. The man then tells him to hurry up and clear the area with a smug smile on his face. Annoyed by the examiner's attitude, Zeke wonders if everyone in this era is so prickly. Rangus runs up to him, excitedly congratulating him for shattering the stone, but Zeke just says it was easy. Zeke asks his companion what the bottle contains, and Rangus explains it is a healing potion. The blue-haired boy adds that it is just the standard kind, ready to open his own bottle. The young warrior inspects the liquid, confirming it is not poison, and suspects it is a rare spirit medicine. He recognizes the main ingredient as cloud-piercing clarity wood, an extremely rare material. This medicine is made from herbs found only in secret realms and cores from powerful divine beasts. It even contains parts from phantom beasts, which are nearly impossible to encounter. After drinking the potion, he knows it instantly heals injuries and boosts source power, making it incredibly rare. A green aura surrounds his arm as his severe injuries heal completely in an instant. He exclaims that it really was spirit medicine. But Rangus clarifies that Lragon potions are just superior to normal ones. The warrior asks if it is that surprising, and his friend confirms it is, amazed by the instant healing. Rangus notes the lack of a power boost, but still thinks his friend's feat was more amazing than the potion. The young man holds the bottle, reflecting on the wisdom humanity has accumulated over 1,000 years. His companion praises his strength, and Zeke casually states he aims to be the strongest as the bully watches from a distance. The test continues, and more applicants manage to pass, receiving their own healing potions for their injuries. Zeke notes that their success was expected. Then the examiner calls for the next applicant, number 414. Realizing it is his turn, Rangus gets very nervous, so Zeke asks him why he is so worried. The young warrior tells his friend to pull himself together, but this only makes the blue-haired boy more anxious. Confused by the outburst, Zeke just watches his companion walk towards the arena. Rangus stands before the stone with a sword in hand, gathering his energy to begin his attempt. With a loud shout, he swings his sword, which glows with a blue aura as it strikes the regeneration stone. His first attempt fails, and the examiner announces he has 2 more tries. Rangus gets up, determined to succeed. He focuses his energy once again and strikes the rock with a powerful swing of his sword. But the attack fails, and he is thrown to the ground for a second time. The bullies in the stands laugh, saying a pseudo-dragon's child is still just a pseudo-dragon. The lead bully turns to Zeke, smugly asking him to repeat what he had said before. He reminds the young warrior that he claimed the boy on the ground was stronger than them. As the taunts continue, the examiner asks Rangus if he wants to use his final attempt. The blue-haired boy remains on the ground, completely dejected and stammering in defeat. At that moment, Zeke walks down into the arena to speak with his companion. He asks his friend why he chose to use a sword instead of a spear. Rangus is confused, so Zeke explains he chose an unsuitable weapon without a proper plan. The young warrior tells him that with his current abilities, he can't possibly succeed with a sword. The bullies laugh, yelling that Rangus's father taught him swordsmanship, not how to use a spear. His friends chime in, agreeing that just changing his weapon will not help him pass the test. Zeke ignores them and asks the examiner if changing weapons is against the rules. The official says it is not. He smiles and tells Rangus the good news, encouraging him to try again. Then he asks his friend if he is just going to accept failure and leave things as they are. Memories of his past flash through the blue-haired boy's mind, rekindling his resolve. He slowly gets to his feet, his determination returning to his eyes. Standing tall, Rangus announces that he will try using the spear for his final attempt. He remembers his father, who couldn't enter the dragon's nest and was ridiculed as a pseudo-dragon. Despite the shame, his father never became bitter and raised him with love and care. Standing in the arena with the spear, he is determined to prove that his father's efforts were not in vain. He knows trying again with the sword will only lead to failure, so he decides to trust his new friend. But as he holds the unfamiliar weapon, he wonders how he is even supposed to use a spear. Zeke points at the rock and tells him to thrust straight forward without thinking about anything else. Rangus repeats the simple instruction, still unsure if a straight thrust will be enough to succeed. He recalls his friend's earlier words, reminding him that he can't know the outcome without trying. Even though they just met, he decides to trust him and gives it his all. Since Zeke believed in him, he decides to believe in himself too, and takes a firm stance. As he holds the spear, he is surprised to feel a surge of source power he never experienced with a sword. With a powerful shout, he thrusts the spear forward, but it bounces off the rock's surface. The bullies laugh, mocking him and saying that just changing weapons won't make a difference. But Rangus realizes the spear feels like a natural extension of his own body. With newfound confidence, he thrusts again, and this time the spear pierces straight through the rock. The bullies are left in complete shock, their jaws dropping in disbelief at the impossible sight. The examiners are equally impressed, noting that he didn't just scratch the stone, he pierced it. Zeke claps and congratulates him, but the blue-haired boy is still in a daze, wondering what he just did. The examiner announces that number 414 has passed, and Rangus can't believe it. Zeke puts his arm around his friend's shoulders, telling him he knew he could do it all along. Overjoyed, Rangus hugs his friend, still in disbelief that he actually passed the exam. The bullies refuse to accept what happened, claiming it must have been a mere coincidence. Before they can argue further, the examiner announces that the examination is now concluded. The man then declares that the entrance ceremony will begin immediately, gathering the successful applicants. Zeke asks if that was all for the test, and Rangus confirms it, guessing there might be more tests later. The young warrior wonders what they will do next, but his friend explains it's not about doing anything. He says the leadership of the Lragon family will now give their congratulatory speeches. A group of high-ranking officials walks out, led by a man with long white hair and glowing red eyes. Zeke asks who the gloomy-looking man is, and Rangus is shocked to hear him call the family head that. The warrior finds it strange that the head looks so cold, so his friend covers his mouth, telling him to be quiet. Rangus pleads with him to stay silent, but Zeke just dismisses his concern with a wave. The young man observes the leaders, assessing the current strength of the Lragon family. He senses several 7-star levels and a good number of 6-star levels, quite a formidable force. He then focuses on the current family head, a man named Balza Lragon. To his surprise, he discovers that Balza is at the 8-star level, a rank almost unheard of 1,000 years ago. The young warrior quietly tells his friend that he does not like the current head, who he now knows is his father. An official calls for attention, announcing that Master Balza will now address the new students. A dark, menacing aura surrounds the family head as he steps forward to begin his speech. With a grim expression, he tells the children to strive to become the flesh and blood of Lragon. Zeke listens to the speech with a look of complete and utter boredom on his face. The immense pressure from the family head makes it hard for the other children to breathe. Zeke notices Rangus struggling and asks if he is all right, his concern growing. He realizes all the children are being overwhelmed by the man's powerful aura. The young warrior feels a tremendous hatred from the family head, reinforcing his dislike for him. After his short and grim speech, Balza turns and walks away without another word. Suddenly, another man claps his hands together, his demeanor much more cheerful and loud. He exclaims how grateful the words were, his voice booming through the silent arena. This new speaker says Balza has high expectations for them and will leave the stiff greetings to others. With a hearty laugh, he encourages the young ones to strive for greatness in their training. The sudden change in atmosphere is a relief, but Zeke still finds the man's behavior odd. Even the bully looks confused by the strange turn of events, unsure what to make of it. An examiner then announces that the dormitory assignments will now be given out. Zeke is surprised to learn that not all the students will be going to the same place. Rangus explains that there are 4 separate dragon's nests: East, West, South, and North Halls. The official calls out Zeke's number, and he stands up, ready to hear his assignment. He is assigned to the Dragon's Nest East Hall, a grand and impressive-looking mansion. He walks through the halls, noting how much things have changed in the past 1,000 years. After getting a bit lost, he finally finds his assigned room, arriving later than expected. He assumes his roommate is already inside and reaches for the doorknob. He opens the door with a smile, apologizing for being late and ready to meet his new roommate, but his smile vanishes as he sees the person inside, his eyes widening in complete shock and disbelief.